Hey everybody, we're here at Red Rocks Racing Sportsbook for the Sports Betting Podcast Bookends, powered by STN Sports. As usual, he's Jason, I'm Chucky. We're going to break everything down for you. College football, pro football, MLB playoffs, wild card
some
round.
WNBA championship.
Yep.
We got Power Slap
Power
this week.
Slap, UFC. A lot of fun stuff going on. So let's talk about last week a little bit. Let's break down some of the games. And, you know, it wasn't maybe that same schedule that we have this week. I think there's more competitive games than what we saw 2 weeks ago. But there was a couple of big games last week, and the two that kind of jump off the page to me were the Alabama-Georgia game and the Oregon-Penn State game. And maybe a game that hurt us a little bit. We ended up being huge Penn State fans. The game was at home in Happy Valley. It was a whiteout. It was a chance for James Franklin and Drew Aller to get that monkey off their back, beat a top 10 team. You guys bet them heavily, Oregon Ducks, and guess what? Penn State, again, didn't come through.
Yeah, and again, Oregon was an ugly game, kind of what we talked about, a low-scoring game. Didn't see the offenses moving the ball up and down the field. Oregon, obviously, completely the better team in the first half, pulled away a little bit, and then Penn State kind of came roaring back. Did everybody a favor by getting the game over, getting into the overtime, and then the big mistake by Aller in the overtime to throw the interception. But we're going to see this Penn State team again. They're going to find their way.
They just haven't shown they can beat these big schools, though.
No, they haven't shown their way to beat these big schools in 10 years. But they're going to find their way back into the playoff and get a little bit of redemption.
I meant more though with Franklin and Aller. It just hasn't been what
Alabama.
we thought.
The memes and everything out there continues to be Georgia's daddy. Alabama owns the Georgia Bulldogs on the road. Huge win for them. The other games for me.
Wait a minute, I thought that was a different podcast.
The other games for me, we talked about it here on Friday, that Virginia was a live dog against Florida State, with Florida State having the game at home against Miami this week. Virginia pulls the massive upset, knocks off the Seminoles, and then USC travels to Illinois after Illinois got destroyed by Indiana. Illinois pulls off the major upset, knocking off the Trojans. Those were two games that were really, really good for the books. But another, Ole Miss 24-19 over LSU. A&M was a 16-10 winner over Auburn.
Well, we kind of talked about some of those double-digit favorites, too, that didn't get there, that there's been so much parity in college football for the first month or so of the season.
Yeah, and again, for me, it was the home dogs. Iowa was getting 8.5 at home against Indiana. They were able to get the cover.
We said that number was really high last week.
A chance to get the win there, and they lose 20-15. So, again, when I looked at this week's card, again, not as exciting as what we saw last week, but definitely some games to look into. And I still think that, again, continuously go back and check those home dogs. There's a lot of home dogs on the calendar in this week's schedule, particularly some ranked teams that are on the road and home and road favorites that we'll dive into.
We're starting to get more into conference play now, so you're going to get some of these teams that have familiarity and have played each other, and there's some patterns there. But before we jump into that, a little bit of last man standing too. There's 153 contestants left in the college football last man standing. Again, kind of a dramatic drop, which we've seen every single week. If you look at where we've been trending this year compared to the last couple of years, we are way below what's left in the contest right now. So there's only, again, 153 left, and at this pace, we might see kind of an earlier finish than normal. Usually it goes to around Thanksgiving, but we're just getting into October right now. All right, let's look at some of the games this week that we highlighted as some of the bigger games of the week. How about number 16, Bama, undefeated Bama, Vandy, traveling to Alabama. This game has come down from 13 to 10.5. Total's been as high as 57. Now sits at 55.5. As I said, Vandy comes in 5-0, and Bama comes off their big win against Georgia. So this is going to be an interesting matchup here with these two schools. But man, Vandy's got a lot of momentum right now, being 5-0.
Yeah, and I think I said it about 3 weeks ago that this is not your grandpa's Vanderbilt Commodores anymore. Obviously ranked 16. They get Diego Pieva, who's kind of changed who Vanderbilt is. They're an offensive team. They're able to move the football. But again, this has not been traditionally where Vanderbilt likes to travel, and going to the Alabama Crimson Tide. And remember, the Tide still have that opening week loss to Florida State. So Kalen DeBoer and the Crimson Tide have a monster chip on their shoulder, and I think
that's why last week's game was so big.
Yeah, you saw it last week in the way and the sense of urgency they had, and the way that they played against Georgia. And I think the fact that Vanderbilt has moved up to be ranked 16th in the country. Alabama's not going to be caught sleeping this week. They're almost a double-digit favorite.
You guys have bet them down, though.
Yep.
We've seen this game come down a full 2.5
Well,
points.
it's the sandwich. It's the Alabama coming off the Georgia win. I think Alabama plays at Missouri next week. So again, you have a little bit of that sandwich, but I don't think they get caught sleeping with Vanderbilt because of the ranked status of the Vanderbilt team that's coming into.
Now, is this a hot sandwich or a cold sandwich?
A sandwich that'll be a sandwich and fill your belly.
Let me give you some interesting betting trends when these two schools get together. Vandy's 5-1 against the number of their last 6 games. They've gone over 5 of their last 7 games. They're 6-0 straight up in their last 6 games. However, they're only 1-4 against the number their last 5 games against Alabama. Alabama's 7 of their last 9 games have gone under as well, yet they are 5-0 against the number at home their last 5 games. So some trends there to look at. Vandy, again, has struggled against the number versus Bama, and Bama 5-0 against the number in their last 5 games at home.
Yeah, and Vandy's coming off that big win over Utah State. Again, a team that put up some decent points on them. They were able to roll them, but again, a much softer opponent,
right.
A team that you're supposed to beat, make you feel comfortable, and now a very, very difficult road challenge.
Another big game in college football, Miami of Florida at Florida State. Miami's still undefeated in this game, as Jay mentioned earlier. It lost some of its luster with Florida State losing to Virginia. They come off their first loss in that Thursday night game. They've had a little bit more time to prepare for this. We've seen this game, it opened up 5. It's been as high as 6. It's kind of come down a little bit to 4.5 and 54, but kind of an early big season game for both Florida State and Miami. And again, this number's come down a little bit, and Florida State comes off that big loss at Virginia last week.
I can hear the dogs barking. This is the home dog special.
You can see a lot of this too.
Where Florida State, obviously, the big loss last week, Friday night at Virginia, the classic look-ahead situation. Miami now goes into Florida State. Florida State's the one that's going to play with a sense of urgency here. 2 very, very good football teams. Obviously, Carson Beck near the top 5 guys in that Heisman Trophy race now.
Maybe to separate him a little bit if he has a big game here.
But for me, again, judging this Florida State team, last week was the game to play against them at Virginia. This is the game that I would be backing the Seminoles, getting the points at home versus Miami.
As we've seen, this number has come down a little bit. Give you some interesting betting trends for this one. Total's gone over in 14 of Miami's last 18 games. Miami is 14-3 straight up in their last 17 games. Yet they're just 5-10 straight up in their last 15 games at Florida State. Total's also gone over in 5 of Miami's last 7 games on the road. Florida State is just 5-12 straight up in their last 17 games. So something has to give here. Last stat though, total has gone under in 12 of Florida State's last 14 games when they've played the Hurricanes. So maybe a tighter, close game. And what Jay said, maybe there's some value there in getting the points and looking at this one under a bit. Now another big game this week where both teams come in and undefeated, 4-0. Texas Tech at Houston. Game opened up 11. Initially went up a bit. Now it's back to 11. Total opened 52. It's now 51. Again, both teams undefeated. Kind of early season surprises a little bit, but a big matchup between Texas Tech and Houston at Houston.
Yeah, and Texas Tech's been absolutely fantastic on the offensive side of the football, and they spent a lot of mill money. If you go back and look at the amount of money that Texas Tech acquired new players,
they're top 5 in the country.
It was all on the defensive side of the football. And again, an 11-point favorite on the road against an undefeated team kind of screams home dog.
But they crushed Utah on the road as well a few weeks ago.
So again, always looking for the home dogs, always looking for a reason to play the home dogs, but this is one that I have a really hard time pulling the trigger on here because Texas Tech has just kind of separated themselves. And this Houston, while a good team, like you said, Utah's a good team. Texas Tech seems to have something about them. So I don't like to play Texas Tech, but I'm going to stay off the home dog.
It's funny, but when we looked at our future book odds for college football, one of the teams that was kind of off the radar a little bit, that you looked at to make the playoff and to potentially win the national championship. We saw a lot of action on Texas Tech, and now you know why. They spent so much money in the offseason on no money. We normally say we want the dog to bark. We might need the cougar to roar in this one to get a chance to maybe get a cover here. Big number again at 11. As I said, it went up a little bit. It's kind of come back down to 11. But Texas Tech can score with anybody in the country and put a lot of points on the board. A couple other games that we'd like to look at here. UNLV and Wyoming. UNLV undefeated. You look at some interesting stats here, though. Wyoming, the last 3 years, a favorite of 3.5 points or more has been beat outright at Laramie. So UNLV comes into this game, numbers come down a little bit. Numbers been as high as 5.5, now settled in at 3.5. We'll see if that's the game where UNLV kind of stubs their toe and the Wyoming Cowboys are able to get an outright victory. My guess is we're going to be huge Cowboy fans as well.
Yeah, and this Wyoming team is a little bit offensively challenged, so they're going to need a big defensive effort, obviously with UNLV coming in and what they've been able to do on offense. Again, you talked about it. The challenge here is this is a tricky, difficult place to go play football. And so, like you said, we're going to be Wyoming fans here from a book standpoint. But again, always cheering for our Rebels. Maybe we can get a Rebel win and not a
1 or 2 point win.
And not a cover. But again, looking for the Rebels to continue this roll. And they're home against Air Force next week. In what should be another game that they're going to be a favorite in and a winnable game. So the Rebel train keeps rolling.
Yeah, we've seen this, as I said, this number come down a little bit. I think by kickoff it'll probably go back up just a bit. Some interesting betting trends with these two schools as well. UNLV has actually gone under 5 of their last 7 games. They're 9-0 straight up in their last 9 games. But interesting stat here, they're just 2-5 against the number in their last 7 games against Wyoming. Wyoming is 7-3 against the number in their last 10 games. So one of these two stats has to give a bit. A couple other games that I wanted to kind of look at and talk about that maybe would draw some interest. The one for me is maybe Clemson and North Carolina. Two teams that kind of went into the season with a lot more hype. We figured Clemson would be much better than 1-3. Carolina getting Belichick there. They've been blown out in a couple of games. You look at Clemson, game opened up 13 and now a 14-point road favorite, but they've really struggled at this point early on. They've looked mismatched in a couple of big games. I know that Dabo has been saying, if you don't want me here, get rid of me. But they're not getting rid of a guy who's got $115 million left on that deal. But they've really been a major disappointment early this season.
Yeah, if there was an all disappointment bowl this week, it would be the Clemson versus North Carolina matchup. Two teams that have not played well, both desperately need a win to stop the chatter. Probably Clemson more than North Carolina. And if Clemson were to go in here as a 14-point favorite and lose to Carolina, you really got to wonder what's going on with Dabo Swinney if they don't jump into that buyout.
Carolina's defense is really challenged, though. I mean, they've been lit up on a couple of occasions this year, so I really think this is a chance for Clemson to kind of say, hey, we're going to regroup a little bit, reset, and they should be able to score a lot against Carolina in this game.
Again, tough for me. I love those home dogs.
I know.
Getting 14 points in a conference game at this point is tough to pass up.
Yeah, it is. There's no question. There's a couple of interesting stats here. Clemson 0-5 against the number their last 5 games. Carolina against the number 4-15-1 their last 20 games. So we'll see how they do in this game at home. And they're just 1-9 against the number going back to last year in their last 10 games at home. So they haven't been good. The last college game I'm going to look at is going to be a game that I think you'll be interested in, and that's Boise at Notre Dame. Irish opened up in this game 18.5-point favorite, been as high as 20.5. Totals actually come down a little bit. Boise comes in 3-1. The Irish 2-2. Not the same Boise team you saw over the last few years with Genty, but Irish are a big favorite here. And they, I think, when you talk about a disappointing team early on, you can put the Irish in that mix as well.
Yeah, again, the 2 losses and getting themselves essentially on the outside.
They got to run the table.
Outside looking in, and not only do they have to run the table, but they have to do it in absolutely impressive fashion. And they started last week with the big win at Arkansas. We saw Jeremiah Love just absolutely increase his stock as where he's going to go in that NFL draft, and maybe try and get him into the Heisman Trophy race as well, with the fact that it's absolutely wide open. I get the rare occurrence of I'm going to miss a football weekend here. I've got a family event in Niles, Michigan, so I'm going to be 15
and how
miles.
far is Niles,
I'm going
Michigan
to be
away
15
from?
miles north of South Bend, Indiana on Saturday. So we are going to take in the Boise State Notre Dame game, and so I will be viewing Touchdown Jesus this week. And you'll have to call me and tell me if I can have to cheer.
Who you're rooting for?
I definitely will have the green jersey on, but you tell me who I'm cheering for.
It's a good thing that the Lions are on the road and the Bears are on the road. So I'm sure he would have found a way to get to one of those games on Sunday as well.
I do have two other college football games that I think are very, very good games this week. Number one, Texas at Florida. Texas is a 7-point favorite at Florida. Florida been very disappointing this year.
1-3.
But again, I'm constantly on the lookout of that home dog, and Florida fits the bill this week better than some of the best home underdogs. In the fact that Texas travels to Florida this week, 7-point favorite, and Texas plays at Dallas in the Cotton Bowl Red River rivalry next week against Oklahoma. So again, not that Texas is looking ahead, but if there was that classic look-ahead situation, this is it for the Texas Longhorns. Arch Manning has not been great. They've picked on the Little Sisters of the Poor, beat up Sam Houston State last week. So this is a spot where Florida can redeem their whole season by knocking off the Texas Longhorns. So again, Florida as a live dog. Purdue Boilermakers, obviously we saw Odom leave UNLV, go to Purdue. They are at home this week, a 9.5, 10-point underdog against the Fighting Illini of Illinois. Again, loved Illinois last week against USC, but again, go back to Indiana where they got absolutely smoked by the Hoosiers, and maybe the state of Indiana is just not where Illinois is going to want to be this year, because I think that this is, again, a tough spot for them to travel to Purdue. And the reason I say that is because the Illini host the Ohio State Buckeye, the number 1 ranked Ohio State Buckeye, next week at home. So again, classic look-ahead situation. Monster victory at home against USC, have to travel on the road to Purdue, and then they get to come back home against Ohio State next week. So look for the Boilermakers potentially being upset there. And then my last one, another home underdog, Central Florida, catching 5 at home against the Kansas Jayhawks. Frost has done a good, I think he had 67 new guys that they brought down to Central Florida, but they're catching 5 against the Kansas Jayhawk. I think that's a little bit too much. I think Central Florida's a live dog down there in Florida. So again, a lot of dogs in Florida. Maybe they hit your Florida parlay this week. Take Florida State, Florida, and Central Florida, and see if they can cash the ticket that way.
So the pro schedule. Again, this is back-to-back weeks now that we've seen a big underdog come through. That's kind of what we've needed. We didn't get it late last year, but you saw the undefeated LA Chargers play the New York Giants, who just have looked horrible so far this year. They made the quarterback change to Jackson Dart. He didn't necessarily beat them with his arm, but their defense played well. He played well with his legs, and they got an outright win, which was great for our side of the counter. We need that big upset. We had the Jacksonville Jags upset the 49ers. So those were kind of 2 games where you saw the dog come in. But I think if you go back to last week and you look like, what was that game that was super exciting or could have been perceived as a bad beat? There wasn't a lot of close games, but I was fortunate enough, thank you again, for getting to go to the Raiders-Bears game. And what an exciting finish. I mean, I think they had talked about the crowd being 50-50 Raiders-Bears. It was 60-40 blue and orange. I felt like I was walking into a game at Soldier Field, and the ending of that game was unbelievable. That blocked field goal, Bears got the win. So a lot of Raider money had come in late there. A good game for our side of the counter as well.
Yeah, I mean, go back, Tampa getting blown out early by the Eagles, able to come back there.
The Eagles still covered the game.
But again, good football game. Seeing where these teams are going as we move forward. Obviously, this Eagles remain undefeated, continuing to roll, playing Denver this week. But again, thought that was a good game, and the evening game to watch the Dallas Cowboys and Packers end in a 40-40 tie. Like kissing your sister, but this Cowboys team of unable to find a way.
They had a chance to win.
They had a chance to win several of these games and these matchups, and I'm sure that the Packer fans are also complaining as to how they lose that game or how they end up tying that game when it sure looked that they were in a winning situation, and questioning some of the play calls and decisions that LaFleur made. But again, exciting that these things are going down. You talked about the big upset by the Giants, which was great for our side of the book. Let's see what you want to dive into.
Speaking of that, though, you bring up a really good point. You look at the Packers, who are 2-1-1 now, but this is back-to-back road games where they've been a good-sized favorite against the Browns and Cowboys. Two not really good teams that they failed to put those games away and win those games. So they make the big acquisition of Micah Parsons in the offseason, but something still seems to be amiss there. I know that Jacobs got a couple of rushing touchdowns, but that offense doesn't look to be the same. It's not as dynamic as I thought it would be this year. Tucker Kraft seems to be the guy, the tight end, who's getting a lot of work. They've got a lot of kind of like B receivers, maybe not that quasi-A alpha receiver right now, but at 2-1-1, I think they're a little disappointing with the tie and the loss at Cleveland and Dallas in back-to-back weeks.
Yeah, 2 games you expected them to win. Romeo Doubs, I think, is turning into that number one, or Love is making him that number one because he's the guy that he goes to around the red zone, and Kraft is going to be there. They need the development of Matthew Golden, to get over the hump. And they're in their bye week this week.
And they'll get Watson back at some point, which should help a lot.
The question marks, we talk about that panic button. What's going on with the Tennessee Titans? I'm trying to will the Tennessee Titans to find a way to win and cover a game this week. So I'm going to wear my Tennessee Titan blue and try and get them to start playing a game. If I had an orange jacket to cheer for the Cincinnati Bengals, it would be right over the top of this one because the Bengals, this is now 2 weeks in a row that they've absolutely been destroyed. And you can make an argument that team quit on the field on Monday night at Denver. Twice punting late in the fourth quarter with
offensively they generate nothing.
4th downs they could have gone for. They just punted. They quit. I don't know where the fix comes in for the Bengals, and they find themselves a 10-point dog at home to the Lions this week, a team that isn't going to care what injuries you have or what you're facing. Dan Campbell's going to throw salt in the wound and continue to push that offense and try and score as many points as he can. So they're in trouble. And then the one that is a surprise that you have to start to hit the panic button on is the Baltimore Ravens. We talked about
that last week.
This Ravens team, they had to play the Bills, they had to play the Lions, but now the loss to the Chiefs, and an embarrassing loss to the Chiefs for a team that looked like they were struggling. And now the question mark of Lamar Jackson's health and the laundry list of guys that are injured for this Baltimore Ravens team is really, really long, both on the defensive side of the football, more so on the defensive side of the football, with some of their top stars not playing. But now, again, to not have Lamar Jackson, who knows what this offense is going to be. And again, they're in essentially a pick-em game now with the Houston Texans this week, showing how far this team and how bad this team was kind of beat up at this point in time.
Yeah, I think, going back to last week, something else to look at is that we did not do well in the Cowboys total. The game, we would have loved an outright Cowboy win. Getting the cover was great, but they're just an automatic over right now. You look at how good they made some quarterbacks look this year. I mean, Jordan Love has looked great. Russell Wilson looked great. Caleb Williams looked great. This Cowboy defense cannot stop anyone right now, and that's almost an automatic over each week. This week they play an offense that has really struggled in New York Jets with Justin Fields. Anxious to see how that Cowboy defense adjusts. But looking at some of the things you just talked about, topic-wise, who are we more worried about right now? Is it the Baltimore Ravens, or is it I forgot who I was looking at here. Or New York Giants, I think, as far as hitting the panic button. I think you look at Baltimore, I'm not panicked about Baltimore at all. I think that they can still win that division. I think in the Giants' case, losing Malik Neighbors is just catastrophic to a young quarterback like Jackson.
Yeah, I think it wasn't so much the Giants. Not that we have high expectations for the Giants. It was awesome to see Dart come out, win a game for them, and they have a game this week against the Saints. That's again a winnable game.
It's the Dolphins. I'm right.
It's the Niners.
The Niners and Dolphins too. I think
the Niners and the Ravens. Right. Two teams that found themselves probably in the top 10 of teams to have a chance to go win the Super Bowl, and you're questioning where are those two teams as we sit today. The Ravens are a pick-em this week against the Texans, and the Niners are a 7-point dog at the Rams. And you go back to both those teams. it's injuries.
Right.
The Niners beat up by the Jacksonville Jaguars, but again, they got 4 guys on the defensive front on the injury list. The offensive line is banged up, and we don't even know who their players on the offense are anymore besides Christian McCaffrey. Purdy's banged up. Mac Jones, the backup, is banged up.
Ricky
Kittle is out.
Jennings, Kittle,
yeah.
right.
I mean, we talk behind the scenes about cluster injuries, and we bring up not only one player or 2 players, but when you have a whole unit of guys that starts to go down, and you got to throw in not only 1 replacement, but 2 and 3 and 4 replacements in today's practice time being limited, and the amount of time that these guys get to work on the field together, and the penalties that we're seeing. Watching that Monday night game between the Jets and the Dolphins, watching that Packers-Cowboys game, you don't plan enough to talk about penalties and how penalties affect the game. And when you have all these new guys that you're trying to mix in, that's when you get these false start penalties. That's when you get these illegal formation penalties. And you don't think about these things when you're looking at the game, but those are drive killers. When you drive down into the 10 inside the red zone, and then you get an illegal formation or that holding call, those are too tough to overcome for these bad teams. So
yeah, but I think
the question on panic button, Ravens, Niners, you got to press it on both, because the injuries, you just don't recover from these injuries, and it could be a lost season for these teams if they don't get these guys back healthy.
Well, I'm going to agree to disagree just a bit. I think it's way more on the Niners side because of the division they play in. You look at the other 3 teams in the NFC West, they're all 500 or better. And the Rams easily could be undefeated. They could have won that game against the Eagles. They're 3-1. The Seahawks are 3-1. They've shown they can win on the road. I think it's a really tough task for that Niner team. I know they're 3-1. They have a very easy schedule, but I don't see those other teams going away. If you look at the Ravens, I know the Steelers are 3-1, but you're not worried about the Bengals or Browns at all this year. And the Steelers haven't looked great defensively. They've struggled a bit. They haven't been able to run the ball that well. I think the Ravens can still win the AFC North. I don't personally think the Rams can win the NFC West.
The Niners.
The Niners can win the NFC West, right. So a couple of things to look at there. One thing we want to talk about, too, is last man standing in pro football. 3:29 left. So that has also been really dropped. The one game that really bounced a lot of people was the LA Chargers. Chargers being that 6.5-point favorite on the road at the New York Giants. That was a game that really saw a lot of people get bounced a bit. So we're going to look at a few big games this week, and one is now that Thursday night game, which is the San Francisco 49ers against the Rams. We've seen this number change dramatically from 3 to 7 because of all the injuries. As Jay mentioned, it's Purdy, it's Jennings, it's Pearsall, it's there's just so many. It's Bosa. They have a lot of injuries right now. They're just 3-10, the Niners, in their last 13 games against the number, and here they have to play a Ram team at home. We've seen this number jump from 3 to 7.
Yeah, and Puka Nacua, as we watch football on a weekly basis, we should all know what we're watching in Puka Nacua. This kid's he's a special player, and we should enjoy that we're getting to see him while he's healthy and put up his stats, because he's absolutely amazing. But the Rams last week should have probably lost to the Indianapolis Colts. If Adonte Mitchell could hold on to the football and not extend it, and they don't get that play there, or if their defense would actually go out and play football with 11 guys instead of 10, the Colts were the better team on the field in LA last week. And the Rams were lucky to sneak out of that game. And now we get to a Thursday night game, and we've talked about it kind of at length. The Niners are just beat up. And this game was a 3-point favorite for the Rams. They're now shot up to a 7-point favorite. We tend to sometimes see a lot of sloppiness on Thursday night, but this game is just a tough game to want to play the Niners with the fact that they're just beat up all over the football field.
It is
and the
a
Rams
divisional
are
game.
Catching a break
Right.
and catching this team so beat up.
It's a divisional game, so if you think there's a game the Niners might be able to get up for, but they're going to need a monumental effort, especially on defense, to slow down that Ram offense, knowing that they're probably not going to score a lot of points. A couple of betting trends here. Rams 6-1 against the number their last 7 games, 9-3 straight up their last 12, but they're 5-1 against the number their last 6 games at home. We've seen this number drive up. 3 points, 3 or 4 points. So looking at Sunday now, look, there's not as many great games on Sunday. I think the one for me that kind of jumps off the page, which is the best game on Sunday, is the Denver Broncos at 2-2, traveling to Philadelphia to play the Eagles at 4-4. This is a Bronco team, Jay, that easily could be 4-0 as well. 2 late field goals they gave up. I think it's a major test for Bo Nix. We know that Sean Payton keeps standing behind his guy. You know, this is my guy. He's going to get better. He looked good on Monday night, although he threw an interception in the end zone. He did get his first rushing TD. This game has hovered around 4. I think it's a big test for the Denver Broncos and that young offense against a Philly team that is so good on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, and I'm never a big fan of a team that comes off playing what is essentially a soft opponent. So Denver at home Monday night.
And a short week.
Sky high, short week against the Bengal team that really put up no effort against them. And now they go into an Eagle team that's got to feel good about themselves, sitting in undefeated. But boy, there seems to be a lot of internal conflict. I mean, the A.J. Brown, we've seen him have the bad weeks, and we've seen him have the big weeks, and then a disappearing act this week. We've seen Barkley have good weeks. We've seen Barkley have bad weeks. We see Jalen Hurts with his good week. We see the defense have a good week and a bad week. The Eagles are undefeated, and they've still not put together essentially a full football
Isn't that scary for the rest of the league?
They play a half, and then they take a half off. Or they play a quarter, they take a quarter off. So if this Eagle team actually puts together a full football game, they become a very, very scary unit. But if you like the Broncos, you're hoping that, again, the Eagles do what the Eagles do, and that's kind of sleep their way through a quarter or two, and Denver can go in there and steal a football game. But the Eagles, with all the weapons they have, everything they have on defense, very, very difficult play against from that standpoint. And maybe the thing to do here is look at the total, that if the Eagles, again, kind of do what they did in the second half against Tampa last week, trying to figure things out on offense. Denver does have a very, very capable defense to keep them in the game. So maybe something to look at there in playing an under. Although a lot of these NFL games have been flying over, and the books have been big fans of the under when we can catch them.
I'll give you some stats here. Denver just 1-4 against the number their last 5 games. They've gone under in 5 of their last 6 games. And Philly 10-0 straight up in their last 10 games. But Philly has gone over in 7 of the last 8 times they've played Denver. So there's something to look at with that. I think it's much more of a defensive battle, and you really think a young Bo Nix and the young offensive skill position players that Denver has, it's going to be a tough task to go play in Philly on the road here. Another game to look at, the Washington Commanders against the LA Chargers. It looks like both Jaden Daniels and Terry McLaurin should be back in this game. This game is sitting right around 3. Look at the Chargers who come off that loss last week against the Giants, and the Commanders had a loss last week at Atlanta, but they were shorthanded. To me, it's one of the better matches of the week as well.
Yeah, and the big news out of Washington is that Daniels is going to practice this week. He's expected to play, says the knee feels good. Obviously a tough road game against the Falcons, who were coming off the 30-0 loss at Carolina, so they again had a chip on their shoulder. But Washington did not look good in that game. Marcus Mariota is not going to end up being the answer. We know that offense starts, continues, and finishes with Jalen Daniels, and so if he's back in the mix, really provides a different aspect. However, we don't know what's going on with that knee. Is he Daniels that's going to run the football, scramble, and be aggressive in that, or is he going to throw the ball away and not be aggressive in that scrambling? And then you have to, I think, talk about the wounded dog that the Los Angeles Chargers are this week, because if there's a team that's pissed off, it's got to be the Chargers. Sky high, all the momentum in the world, everybody's talking about you, and you go and lay an egg in New York and lose to the Giants. So
I guess not a very good Giants.
I didn't like the way the young rookie Omarion Hampton ran the football the first couple weeks of the season, and then Najee Harris goes down, and I think we saw Omarion Hampton say, okay, this is now this is my running back committee. It's me. And I loved the way that he ran the football this week. Quentin Johnson has been absolutely fantastic for the Chargers. Keenan Allen has been good, but it's Ladd McConkey. Does anybody, where is Ladd McConkey? Can the Chargers find Ladd McConkey? Can Herbert find Ladd McConkey? Because this was the guy that was their offense last year. And if he can find a way to get back in the game, I think he had 1 reception for 11 yards against the Giants. If they can get McConkey back in this offense. This is a really, really good offense with a capable defense. But man, I feel like the Chargers have got to find McConkey, and they're back home again. Never a home field advantage to the Chargers. It's an open, empty stadium. I don't know how many Commanders fans will make the trip, so there's not much there. But again, a very, very short spread. Somewhere you can find 2.5 on the Chargers.
That it's been at that number, I think.
Especially with the back-to-back road games for the Commanders. But again, let's see if we can get a Ladd McConkey sighting this week in LA.
I think some of the things that have really hurt the Chargers, though, is that they lose Joe Alt last week as well. So they lose an offensive lineman in the offseason. They lose Joe Alt now, who's just been phenomenal anchoring that offensive line. So I think that really hurts a bit. We'll see if the Commanders can kind of muster a little bit of defense here against that team. Some interesting stats here. Washington just 1-4-1 in their last 6 games against the Chargers against the number. Chargers are 6-2 straight up in their last 8 games. Total's gone under for the last 6 times that these two teams have met. And as Jay mentioned, a very small point spread in this game as well. We're going to jump to the primetime games now. Look at Sunday Night Football, rivalry night, Buffalo against New England. Buffalo has played 4 of their first 5 games. This one included at home. They now go on the road after Sunday Night Football, for 3 of their next 4 on the road. This number's come down a bit from 9.5 to around 8, so we've seen some early action on the Pats here, but an awfully tough place to play in Buffalo on prime time on Sunday night.
Yeah, New England coming off the big win, kept rolling up points on the Panthers. Drake May looked fantastic. We see that what is now a 3-headed monster in the backfield for the Patriots with Henderson, Gibson, and Stevenson. But they've got a capable offense. And the thing for me about this Bills team is, I talked about it last week, the gift from the schedule makers, obviously the week 1 against the Ravens, but they now got 3 home games in a row against the Dolphins, the Saints, and the Patriots. And I have to tell you, these last 2 weeks against the Dolphins and the Saints, they got out of these games with wins, but not impressed with the overall energy and effort, kind of lackluster performances from the Bills in both these last 2 wins. So Sunday night, get the feeling that maybe it'll be a different story, especially if it was a little bit later in the year with the temperature. But those Bill fans are going to be absolutely crazy with this Patriots team that, again, we know the history of the New England Patriots, and for a decade and a half, the Patriots kind of beat up this divisional foe. So to go into Buffalo Sunday night, this feels like maybe the spot where the Bills come and have a desire to play and beat a team up. I just don't know if on that defensive side, if they've got enough to continuously talk about this being a double-digit favorite, this being an 8, 9, 10-point favorite. They can continuously score on offense, but I think they like that challenge of, hey, can we go score? We got to respond to the team coming back. And the Saints looked like a capable offense last week after the Dolphins the week before. So I think this is the best offense they're going to see of these past 3 weeks in the Patriots. And so maybe the spot here is the over. This looks like a Sunday night over for sure. But come on, Patriots, let's get a cover here.
Yeah, I think you look at Buffalo too, and we all think they're really good. They're 4-0. They're probably the best team in the AFC right now. If you had to say, Philadelphia, Buffalo on somewhat of a collision course, but you beat who's in front of you, and it is hard to get up every single week. The numbers against some of those teams, against Miami, who was banged up and not playing well, against the Saints, those were huge inflated numbers. That number against the Saints last week, opening 17, was one of the biggest numbers we'd seen, in years. And they still got the win, and they were comfortable in the win. But this is their last game at home before they go on the road for 3 out of 4. So they'll probably be looking to kind of end on a good note. I think still a tough place for New England to go play. Give you a couple of interesting betting trends here. New England just 5-15 straight up their last 20 games. They are 4-1 against the number their last 5 games against Buffalo, and these two teams have gone over 4 of the last 5 games they've played. Now we're going to shift over to Monday Night Football, Chiefs-Jags. The demise of the Chiefs was greatly exaggerated. We talked about it last week that we really felt that Chief game against the Ravens was such a monumental early season game for the Chiefs. We didn't know what the Chargers would do. We thought if the Chargers won that game, they did lose They did, and we talked about it. They could have been 4-0. The Chiefs could have been 1-3. I think the Chiefs showed everybody with that win against the Ravens, like, hey, pump the brakes a little bit. We still have Andy Reid. We've got Spags on defense, and we've got a certain quarterback that can get the job done with 4 TD passes. So greatly exaggerated. They come in against a Jag team that I really think has underperformed offensively. When they brought in Liam Cohen, they expected this offense to be very similar to what you saw when he was the OC at Tampa. Kind of spread the ball out, run up the score. You've got talented wide receivers in Thomas, and you brought in Hunter as the number 1 pick. Hunter hasn't done anything offensively yet. You had some good running backs with Etienne. This offense has really struggled, and the Jags have been a dead under every week. Now they play against a really tough Chief defense. We've seen this game go from 3 to 3.5. My guess is we'll be huge Jag fans on Monday night. And again, for the Chiefs, it's, hey, don't worry about us. We've heard Aaron Rodgers say, relax after rough starts or slow starts. My guess is internally, that's what the Chiefs were saying as well. Relax, we'll be fine. And they looked that way against the Ravens last week.
Yeah, and I was one of the ones pressing that panic button on the Chiefs, and I'm not ready to come off of it just yet. I still don't. But
they do have Worthy back, and they're going to get Rice back, which I think will really help that offense a lot.
Yeah, and getting Worthy back, obviously, I think he was 5 catches for about 83 yards, but he also had, I think, 3 carries for 43 yards running the ball. So again, add a dynamic player, a superstar, super guy with speed like that, adds a different aspect to the offense. But again, go back to that Ravens team and how banged up they are, and I don't think everybody realized how injured and hurt that team was, and Kansas City was able to really take advantage of that. On the flip side, this Jacksonville Jaguar team, I think we saw maybe the same thing this past week with their win at San Francisco, and that they took advantage of a San Francisco 49ers team that was banged up and not able to do a whole lot. Brian Thomas has not been the Brian Thomas we saw last year when we had not Trevor Lawrence throwing the football to him, and Trevor Lawrence still isn't not leading this offense the way Liam Cohen led offense would expect him to be.
He's missing a lot of. He's turning the ball over in the red zone. He's missing wide open guys, and we thought Travis Hunter would be a great complement to Brian Thomas. That has not been the case for the first 4 weeks of the season.
They've had success with Etienne running the football. Tootin, kind of behind him, has been the goal line back, the short down back. But they've had success. But again, this is a really tough spot. Traveling to a Jacksonville team that feels like they have hope, and this is their spot to go prove themselves. While the Chiefs are, you talk about it, a team that, because of those losses, has to go out and prove themselves every week. And again, you don't like to get where you're cheering against number 15 and or the officials that seem to travel with Patrick Mahomes. So again, a very tough Monday night game from play standpoint. And I think the number gets involved in this with the 3.5. And we jumped over it. But another game that on Sunday that I think we have to talk about it just from the local flair is the Raiders traveling to the Colts, and a Colts team that I said was going to be very, very good when this year started. I think they have a great offensive line, a good defensive front, great receivers, good running back. The big question mark was Daniel Jones and what was he going to be able to do at the quarterback position. As long as he doesn't turn the ball over, they're going to stay in football games.
If you're the Minnesota Vikings, don't you wish you had Daniel Jones right about now?
Or the New York Giants, or there's several teams that are desperate for quarterbacks. And again, the injury plague all over the league with receivers being down, running backs being down, Arizona Cardinals now without Trey Benson after losing James Conner. So you're going to go game by game and how injuries are affecting the league. But again, the Raiders traveling to the Colts this week come off the disappointing loss to the Bears where they had a chance to kick that field goal, win the game at home. Geno Smith has not been good. The interceptions
leads with 7 interceptions.
Have really been a curse for this Raider team. Ashton Jeanty finally showed who he can be, looked absolutely incredible, scored 3 touchdowns. We talked about it, that Chicago Bears defense is going to make Ashton Jeanty look good that last week, and sure enough, Jeanty able to put up the points, had a good game. This Colts is not that same defensive front that the Bears are. I think this Colts is a very, very good team, and I think the fact that they went to LA and lost in the way that they did, that they come back with a big response here. Again, excited about this Raiders team, but it only goes as far as not turning the ball over and having good defensive pressure with Max Crosby. He has to find his way to get to that quarterback, because that Raiders secondary is beatable, and this is a very good Colts defensive front, and that's why you see the Colts a touchdown favorite.
It just seems like a big number in that game, but you're right. You look at the struggles the Raiders have had, especially throwing the ball, which I was really surprised because I know the Bears defense has not been that good. They didn't throw for that much. He threw 3 interceptions in the first half, very kind of telegraphed passes on those 3, but you're right, Ashton Genty had a big game, and they're going to need to have a big game running the ball again against the Colts. Give you some betting trends on that Raider game. It's that you look at the Raiders and their schedule, though. They started East Coast, back West Coast, East Coast, back West Coast, and now they have to travel again to the Midwest. So it's been a little bit of a tough road for them. And before we conclude, don't forget, we're still going through the MLB wildcard playoffs right now.
And if you don't have that STN Sports app with the daytime baseball and
That's
you're stuck at work,
Day baseball.
get on the app. $50 no worry wager available. These games have 500 plus props available. Home runs, hits, RBIs, strikeouts. Check out the baseball menu. Enjoy the baseball playoffs. Get on the app. Take advantage of the match of the day as well, where there's a 10% bonus on the match of the day. If your team's minus $1.50, you play that match of the day, you get them for $1.40. Take advantage of the match of the day. And as I bring up the match of the day, UFC card on Saturday, incredible card. Be prepared for a match of the day, 10% bonus on that UFC championship on Saturday.
And don't forget, as last week, we had the game overseas in pro football. We have another early kickoff this week at 6:30 a.m. The app will be open. It's 24/7 over the counter. And, of course, our kiosks are open as well. So if you want to come out and join us and have fun early in the morning at any one of our racing sports books, come on out and have some fun for that early game between Cleveland and Minnesota on Sunday morning. So for Jason, I'm Chucky, and the Sports Betting Podcast Bookends, powered by STN Sports. Good luck, and we'll see you guys next week.